Our Father and our God, we thank you for this opportunity to be in your presence this evening. We thank you, we worship you, we exalt you. Lord, even as we begin, oh God, Father, this youth week, we ask that you have your way. Speak to us, oh God, only the things that you want us to hear. Open our eyes, our ears, our hearts, oh God, Father, that we will receive of you tonight, oh God, and that your name alone will be glorified. For in Jesus' mighty name we have prayed. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. Happy Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving Eve. Hallelujah. So we're starting the youth week today, but I believe all of us are youths here. We are youth at heart. Amen. But I'm just grateful for the topic that the youth have decided to choose, because I think it's something that affects a lot of people, not just the youths. So I think it's something that everyone can benefit from. Amen. And so today we'll be talking about avoiding the credit debt crisis. Avoiding the credit debt crisis. And I just feel like it's more towards attaining financial freedom. You know, it's one thing to get out of debt, but it's another thing to go beyond debt. So before we start, I just wanted to have an idea of where we all are. So by show of hands, other than your mortgage or a business debt, you know, is there anyone who is completely debt free, so you don't have any debt at all whatsoever? So besides mortgage and besides maybe business debt, is there anybody who doesn't have any debt at all? Sincerely, is there anyone who doesn't have any? So you don't have any student loan, you don't have any credit cards, you don't have anything at all? Because if we don't, then it probably wouldn't really make any difference to us. Amen. So I believe that it's something that will be important to us, because even though it says credit debt, it can still be applied to other kinds of debt that you might have, you know. So I think that's why it's important for us to look at it. So I don't want us to just see it from just the aspect of just credit cards. You might not have credit card debt, but you might have other debt that you're thinking, oh, how do I go about this? You know, how do I really put my finances in order to come out of this debt? So those are the things we'll be looking at. So as we start, we will look at what credit is, what credit cards are, you know, how those things are calculated based on the youth's what the whole program is about. It's something that will help youths to, especially most youths are probably not really into debt at this point. So it's hoping that they wouldn't have to even go deep into debt as they go on in life. You know, statistics will tell us that it's really between the ages of, say, 30 to 50 that a lot of people get most of their debt. So if somebody is less than 30 and the person has not gotten a lot of debt, it will be beneficial to learn, okay, so what are the things I need to avoid, you know, going in. But for most of us that are here, we will also learn it's not just avoiding. You know, we might already gone into debt, so we'll also learn things that will help us come out of debt. So we're looking at both sides. Praise the Lord. Okay. Did you do that or did I? Okay, you can move to the next slide. So I just wanted to kind of explain some key terms before we start looking at debt. And the first few slides, we're going to go through them very fast. So it's just for us to kind of understand the foundation, what credit card is, what, you know, how credit is related and things like that. So, but credit really is just the ability for us to be able to borrow debt, you know. So when somebody say, you hear some people say, I have good credit, I have bad credit, you know. So credit is that you have the ability to even borrow in the first place, you know. So sometimes you might get a credit card of like 10,000. It doesn't mean you're owing anybody 10,000. It just means that you have the ability to spend that much if you choose to. But debt is when you've actually borrowed the money, when you've actually spent the money, that's when you are in debt. Even the student loan is the same thing. You might have access to maybe a $30,000 student loan, but you might end up just using maybe 10 to 15,000, depending on what your program requires. But the crisis comes in when you are unable to pay up that debt, continuously. Of course, most times when people borrow money, the idea is that over a period of time, you will pay it off. That's the goal. But sometimes over that period of time, you are still not able to pay it off. We are still not able to meet, those are our financial obligations. So that's when we begin to say, there is, this is more than just having credit, or this is just more than being in debt. It's more like a crisis situation. Am I going backward? Okay, so these are just some statistics that I thought it was important for us to look at. So, average household has over $8,000 credit worth of debt. Most people are just, living like from paycheck to paycheck, and then there is more than over $1 trillion of consumer credit debt for Q1 of 2019. Anybody knows which people are like the Gen X generation? What's the age bracket of Gen X? It's between 35 to 55. So those are the people that have the highest amount of debt for credit cards specifically. So I think the main thing that I want to bring out from these statistics is that most people are using credit cards for like their daily expenses. It's one thing if you're using money for just whatever reason why you need to, but when you're relying on it for just your regular daily needs, then that's when it becomes like an issue. So, and most people, they probably would not be able to survive if there was no such thing as a credit card. Just imagine if this country did not have anything called credit or credit card, and then imagine, that's a personal question, would I be able to, continue my life and survive conveniently without credit? And that will get us thinking. So this just shows us in the age bracket, like we said, most people between 35 to 44, every age bracket has debt, but these are the age bracket. This is how difficult it is for some people to be able to pay that debt, and it falls within that age bracket that we're looking at. As you see, the ones between 35 to 44 and 45 to 54 have the most difficulty paying back the debt. So what are credit cards? I believe most of us already know what credit cards are, but I just want to run through this real quick. So it's the cards that we get from banks, we get from the store. You go to the store, you want to buy something, they ask you, do you want credit card? If you get this credit card, you have like 30% off, all those things that they tell us, and then we get the cards. Most credit cards come with a very high interest rate. Depending on your credit score, depending on where you're getting the card, they usually come with a high interest rate. Ideally, you will be expected to pay back in full. Some people pay off their credit cards monthly. They just use the credit card just for, just to buy things, but they pay it off every month. But some people don't pay it off every month. When you don't pay it off every month, then you have interest and charges that comes with that credit card. But when you pay it off every month on time, you don't have any interest or charges that comes with that credit card. So it depends on how you use it. And finally, most credit cards have rewards attached to them. So some credit cards, you can get them to get like a lot of cash back. You can get it to get a lot of miles. Some people use the credit card all year. They pay it off. They rack up a lot of miles that they use for all of their vacation, and they don't have to spend out of their money. So it really depends on the individual and how you use the credit that is available to you. So this is another thing that I was thinking, like, is it really that important? I know people that live conveniently without credit cards. They don't rely on it, but they don't even believe that it's even necessary for them to live in this country. Like, they can. I know somebody who lives without credit card at all. He does not have one and he does not use one. So do you really need it? Sometimes when you go for insurance, they will tell you if you have like a good credit score, then they might have like a lower rate. With some people, when they're renting apartments, they want to check your credit history. There are different things that it does. It is important that's one way or the other. It doesn't mean that you cannot get all of these things done without credit, because people do. It's just that it might be more difficult for you to be able to find places that would even, some people find it difficult to even get like a good like a mortgage, or to get like a good rate for their insurance just because they don't have credit. Some people find it difficult to get a place to rent because they don't have credit. So there are things that is necessary for, but it doesn't mean that it's not it's not impossible for you to live without it. Praise the Lord. So the pros and cons, I think we've talked about this. Helps you build your credit. It's convenient. Some people just use it for the convenience. It's easier if someone hacks into like your information. If you're using a debit card, your money is just gone once. If you're using a credit card, it's easy for the credit card company to still, retrieve it. And there's more, I guess, security for most people. They believe that there's more security when you're using a credit card than when you're using a debit card. But the cons is that it's easy to spend. It's just a card. That there is like 1,000 or 10,000 in this card. It's easy to just swipe it and the money just keeps going. So that's something to just keep in mind. And then credit scores usually range anywhere between 300 to 850. Is built over time. There are certain factors that determine where your credit score falls. So basically, these are the major things that determine what your credit score is. Your payment history. So do you pay your credit card bills on time? Amount owed. So if you have a credit card that is say $1,000, how much of that 1,000 do you use? Do you use $30, or do you use the whole 1,000? I think those two are probably the most important thing when it comes to what your credit score is. Ideally, people would say it's good to have like a credit utilization, which is the amount owed of something less than 30%. But if you can do something less than 10%, it's even the best, or not even use it at all. And then your credit history length, that's just how long have you had a credit card. It just plays into whatever your score is. New credit, how often do you open a credit card? Are you someone that, go to this store, you open a credit, or do you just do it only when you need it? And then what types of credit do you use? So the credit here is not referring to just credit cards. It's referring to every type of debt that you have. So your student loans, any kind of debt, personal loans, you can go to the bank and borrow a loan. All of those loans affect what your credit score will be, not necessarily just credit cards. So if you're someone who is just having credit cards for the first time, there are different things you can do to build your credit, but honestly, it's just a matter of time. No matter how many things you do, it's over time that will determine what your credit score will be. So, but the main thing to think about is getting a secured credit card. I think that's probably the best route to go. A secured credit card is where you have, even if it's just $100 or you have $200, you go to the bank, you tell them you want to build your credit, you deposit that money that you have into an account, and then they give you a credit card, and you're spending based on that limit that you already have. So based on that limit, any expenses you make on that card is counting to your credit score. So that's just a way to build your credit without going into debt. And then, of course, making your payments on time. But if you have low credit right now, if it's something that your credit is already down and you're looking for how to build that credit, there are several things you can do. The most important one, of course, will be to pay up whatever debt you have currently in your credit card, and we'll look at ways to do that shortly. And then also just calling the credit card company to see if there's a way you can increase your limit. Increasing your limit just helps you to reduce that credit card utilization. So for example, if you're if you have $1,000 credit limit and you've spent maybe like 600 or 700 or 800, whatever it is, or even the whole thousand, and your goal now is, okay, I want to pay down this debt as much as I can. You know, you can start paying it down a little bit at a time, but you can also call the bank and say, oh, is it possible to increase my credit limit from 1,000 to 2,000? That just increases your credit utilization. So it shows that instead of showing that you've used 100% of that credit, it now shows that you used maybe 50% of that credit. And then you can consider doing a balance transfer. A lot of credit card companies do that now. If you're having like a very high interest rate, you can do a balance transfer to like a 0% interest rate. If your goal is just paying down the credit, that will help you to focus on just paying down whatever balance you have without having interest coming on there monthly. And then you should not close existing cards, because that will just kind of bring down whatever your credit score is. Get a copy of your credit report. Sometimes those credit reports, they might have things on there that is not even part of what you... I mean, there are things that you can dispute on your credit report. You know, if there is anything there that is not accurate, it might be affecting your credit score. So these are just the warning signs. These are things that you would see and you begin to consider, like, you know, sometimes credit, and let me just say debt in general, is something that we don't really like to give much thought to. It's something that we don't really want to talk much about, you know, because for whatever reason, you know, we just feel like it will go away, or it will pass, or at least nobody's coming to carry us and put us in prison because we have debt. Nobody's going to come and hold our hand and say, why do you have this debt? So for some people, it seems like it doesn't really matter, but there are things that when you begin to see these things, you begin to wonder, like, you know, am I really going in the right path financially? There are things that should get your mind thinking if you're into any of this, if you're falling into any of this situation. So if you can only afford to pay the minimum payments, you know, that is all you can afford to pay. So for example, if you have that $1,000 and you are owing maybe $500, and all I can pay, my minimum payment is $100, or my minimum payment is $50, most of the time, whatever amount you have for minimum payment is set in such a way that with that minimum payment and with the interest rate, you're going to pay that thing for years to come. That's the way they set it up. So if you're relying on, well, at least I can make the minimum payments, then at that point, you know that they already have you exactly where they want you to be, because that's going to be an easy way for the credit card companies to just keep making money month after month after month. And think about it, that's money that you could have used to do so many other, you know, more important things. And then if you rely on credit for your necessities, so if you rely on it for like day-to-day purchases, like you can't afford to buy something unless you use that credit card, that's something that should get you thinking, like, okay, what do I need to do at this point? And then sometimes if you miss a late payment, if you miss a payment or you make a late payment, if you don't even know where you are financially, like if you cannot say that I have, some people cannot even say that I have, maybe I have $5,000 of debt, or I have 50,000, doesn't really matter what the amount is, but you don't even know your state financially. You don't even know whether you have or you don't have. You don't even know how much it is. You don't know what the interest is. If you're not keyed into those details, that's like a warning sign. And then if you have to, even though we talked about doing the credit card balance transfer, but if you have to keep doing that over and over again just to be able to, you know, it's like you're trying to dodge the what's it called, the credit card companies. If you have to keep doing that over and over again, that's a cause for concern. And then if your credit score keeps going down, that's also something to be worried about. Okay, so we come to what we really want to look at today. So how do we even avoid the credit cards debt issue? And I want us to look at it from just debt in general. And I'm kind of rushing through this so that we can have more than enough time to ask questions. We can have more than enough time to discuss, you know, whatever it is that we want to discuss, which does not necessarily have to be credit card. But if you have any question that is relating to finances in general, I really want us to have time to ask those questions and discuss those things. I think it's something that is important that should be discussed in church, both on the pulpit and off the pulpit. Like, personal finances is something that we should be able to talk about freely, you know, without concern of, you know, without any form of judgment of what anybody would think about you. So how do we avoid the credit card debt crisis? You know, one of the things that I think is most important is just having a budget. You know, having a budget, you will see people that are making so much money and they are still in debt. And you will see people that are making a little money and they are not in debt. And the only difference between the two is that one person is planning his finances and the other person is not planning his finances. One person is living within his means and the other person is not living within his means. So I strongly believe that the issue of credit card or even debt in general, other than maybe student loans that you have to take maybe when you're going to school, but the issue of debt in general, most of the time comes from or not being able to pay the debt, you know, comes from, you know, do we have a budget? Are we living within our means? Are we planning for emergencies? For some people, that card is the emergency. So if there's like their car is breaking down, you know, or so they might have money for, you know, just the regular, you know, daily expenses. But when it comes to critical things like somebody needs to be rushed to the hospital, my car is not working, you know, I need to buy new tires, everything is like, the credit card is like the backup, which ideally ought not to be the case, you know. So planning for those big expenses, making impulse buys or big buys, you know. When we go to the store, it's easy to just see something that you just like. You just say, I need to have this thing. And we can rationalize why we need to have that thing. We can, you know, we can convince ourselves of the need to buy that thing, knowing fully well that it's either not in our budget or we don't have the money for it. But we can explain it away in our minds, you know. Another thing is cash advances, which is something we'll probably talk a little bit more about. But cash advances is where you are able to withdraw cash from your credit. So whatever balance, whatever limit your financial institution has given to you, and you need to actually withdraw cash, you're able to withdraw a certain limit of cash, which is usually lower than whatever your credit limit is. But usually it comes with like a higher interest rate most of the time. So when you have to start drawing those cash advances, then you already know that there's probably, you know, something that you need to deal with at that point. And then just understanding the credit terms, you know, there's so many different websites that you can go to where you'll be able to analyze like different types of credit cards. Even if it's something that you need to get, you see which one really makes sense for me, you know, based on my situation and where I am, because some of them might not be what you really expect them to be. And then just keeping good records, and then, like we said, reviewing your credit card, your credit report. So, but in avoiding maybe something that, like we said, is for somebody who doesn't even have the credit in the first place. But if we're someone that we already have the credit or we already have the debt and we're thinking of ways to like come out of that debt, we need to look at, I mean, the first thing is just that we just have to stop using that credit card. We just have to stop using that card, or we can't rely on that debt anymore. We can't rely on it as like a source of income. We can't rely on it as a way to get by, you know. And we need to prioritize. So if you have several debts, which may not just be credit card debt, if you have like a school loan or you have any other debt at all, you know, you have to prioritize which one is most important. Some people may want to prioritize paying off their debt by looking at which one has like the highest interest rate and go from the highest interest rate to the lowest interest rate. Some people may want to look at it prioritizing from which one is the lowest balance that they have and go from that lowest balance to like the highest balance. It doesn't really matter which one you go with. The most important thing is as long as you're prioritizing and you are deciding to pay off those debts, that's really what matters. And then creating a budget and sticking to it, and then consider doing the balance transfer. But that balance transfer only makes sense if you're really sure that you're on the road to paying off this debt. And then looking for ways to increase income. I think making money, you hear people making money, how to make money, how to increase your income, different sources of income. That's something that I think is more interesting. It's something is more like everybody's looking for how to make more money. What do we need to do? Is there any business that we can, contribute? Is there any way we can increase our income, which is very, very good, but let that making money be focused on making sure that you don't have any debt in the first place. And then having an accountability partner. Of course, it could be your spouse, or it could be somebody else that you just trust, or somebody that you just want to bounce ideas off, just to know, am I even in the right path? And then using credit cards for like businesses or investments. Sometimes we rely on credit cards for maybe somebody wants to go into a business, might say, oh, well, I have to get a credit card for, I have to get a credit to be able to go into this business, but you have to be able to really distinguish. Are you relying on like a personal credit for that? Or are you relying on a business credit for that? There are two different things, and that's something that you really need to keep at the back of your mind. Also, are you somebody who is like more risk adverse, or are you somebody who is able to are you conservative? Are you like me that you would have to think and analyze and research and do everything before you even think of bringing out a credit card to swipe for a business? Or some people are really more open to that. They're ready to take the risk, and of course with that risk, for most people there's rewards that come with it, but not always. So if you must use it for business, just ensure that you have like a separate legal entity that is set up for your business, so that you're not incurring more debt for yourself. So at this point, I want to just open it up for us to ask questions, and let's not limit our questions to questions relating to credit cards, but whatever question you have relating to finances in general. And I also have some questions too, so to go both ways. Yes.
I have a question. You mentioned how. So my first question is, are you saying it is totally impossible or unadvisable to live without a credit card in America? Because when you come from a country like Nigeria, whereby all your purchases are based on your money that you have, and then you get to a country whereby this credit is available to you. Of course, if one doesn't know, you would enter inside it and get debt without advice. So now you've entered, you're like, I don't want to have to depend on this. Is it possible for you?
It is 100% possible and that is, ideally, that's what it should be. Everyone should be living without any credit card debt. To me, that should be the norm. It is possible, and it is advisable, and it is doable, and a lot of people are doing it, not living with any credit card debt. Using credit cards and living with credit card debts are two completely different things. So if you want to use credit cards, you can use credit cards without living in any kind of credit card debt. But if you're somebody who feels like, if I have this card and I know I have this money available to me, then the probability of me spending more than what I should is very high. Then it's better for you not to have the credit card at all. There are different ways of building your credit without credit card. So if your goal is building credit, you don't have to rely only on credit card. Secured credit is probably one of the easiest ways to build it with just very little out-of-pocket money for you. So it's very possible to live without credit card.
Okay, sorry, I have one more question. So if you one of your slides said one of the warning signs is if you cannot save because of debt. So let's say I have a credit card of 500, and I have 500, but I want to put 500 in a savings account and pay 100 over 5 months. If you were to advise me, would you say just pay up the 500 now and clear that card, or do I do that savings?
So it depends on the individual situation. So if it's someone who knows that you have like a steady job and you have consistent income coming in over time, and based on that income you're going to be able to save something, even if it's, let me say you can save just $50 after all of your expenses, you are going to be able to save $50, and you have, and it's just an example, and you have, you know, that $500 credit card debt, and but you have $500, you know, you might decide, okay, I don't want to just put this whole $500 into the credit card because I want to just have a cushion, you know, just in case something happens. So you might put 200, you know, the next month you save 50, put a little bit more in the credit card debt. So the whole goal is you trying to pay it off as quickly as possible and not going with whatever credit minimum payment that they are sending to you, because most people are, you know, if they say, okay, you can only pay $30 a month, some people will just keep doing that $30 a month, you know, not realizing how much they're actually paying at the end of time. It's not the 500, it's now like maybe 1,500, you know. So you can combine your savings a little bit with the paying off, you know, but the goal is paying off as much as you can, as fast as you can, you know, and then now rely more on the savings.
I wanted to ask you, as you said that it's possible that you can live in this country without a credit card. Are you saying?
Yes.
Okay, you know why I'm saying this now? Was it this just February? No, it wasn't February. A couple of months ago, I went to Florida. I was coming back, so we're going from where we went to go to the Florida airport. That's Orlando airport, and I wanted to rent a car.
Yes.
I wanted to rent a car, but I couldn't rent a car because I didn't have a credit card.
Yes.
I didn't want to have a credit card, so I didn't have a credit card. I went to all the rental places there. Nobody will rent me a car because I didn't have a credit card.
Yeah.
So I had to take a bus from there to the airport. So I would.
And you're here now, right?
Yeah, well,
So
yeah.
it is possible.
Oh my
That's why I
goodness.
said it is difficult, but it's
It
very
is.
possible. It's possible.
Yeah, it was very
A
convenient.
lot of people plan their lives without credit card. They already
Okay.
know that. You know, people who live without credit card already know that if you
Okay.
go to a car rental, they're going to ask you,
I
where's your
didn't
credit
know.
card? So they plan alternatives without that. You know, a lot of people plan alternatives without relying on the credit card.
Okay.
But I said, like, if you look at the slide, I say a lot of people use it for convenience. You know, that is why people rely on it. It's so convenient. You know, there are so many places that will not rent a home to you, an apartment to you, if you don't have credit. Well, that one does not even rely on credit card. It just relies on credit, you know. So it's very possible. It's just that it's very it's difficult. But if you know the things you need to do, you plan ahead of time, you find alternatives to them, you know, exactly what you talked about now. There are ways to go about it without using the credit card. So.
How do you have credit without a
Hey,
credit card?
you're speaking out of turn. It's my turn.
Yes, so her question is, how do you have credit? Sorry, sir. She said, how do you have credit without using the credit card? So, for example, some people would get like, if you have a student loan, it's going to build up your credit. If you have a personal loan, it's going to build up your credit. If you don't want to have a loan at all, like I said, the easiest way is just getting a secured card. Or even if you don't want to get a card at all, there's something called like a builder credit loan. So it's a loan where you already put the money. Either if you're doing a builder credit loan or you are doing a secured credit card, both of them, you don't have a loan. You are putting in the money in the bank. It's like you're going to the bank to deposit money. You go to the bank and tell them, I have this $100, take this $100. I want to build my credit. Then you now they give you a card, you know. So it's a card that technically is like a debit card because it's your money in there. But they only make it credit because they want it to count for your credit score. Because a normal debit card, any expenses you make is not counting towards your credit score. So if the goal is just to build credit, you know, you can either get that builder loan where you're putting in, some people just put in like $500 or put in $100 and they spend $10. That's 10% of $100. You just spend $10 out of that money. It's going to build your credit. But remember, one of the major things that builds your credit is the time as well. So even if whether you're taking a credit of $50,000, or you're taking a credit of $5,000, or you're taking a credit of $100, if today you are just starting to build credit, it's going to take time for credit, for your credit score to go up. So things like that build your credit.
Oh, okay. My tongue. Thank you so much. Are there some purchases that you require a credit card to buy? For example, I'll give you an example. Let's say you're traveling to Nigeria and you want to buy a ticket. People say it's best to use a credit card instead of your own cash or any other form of payment. And that's one question. The other question is, there's always this debate whether you should pay off your mortgage or not pay it off. Or how should you attack that? Because people see mortgage as a good debt, something that it has a low interest and it'll build your credit, and also you have equity. So what is your point of view on that, on those two?
So for the first one, buying some purchases that you need to buy with credit, I think that was one of the slides we put, saying that there are some things that it will be a lot easier if you have credit, and if you have a credit card and you want to make those purchases. It's not impossible to buy them without credit, but it is a lot easier. There's some companies that you go to swipe and they tell you we only take credit cards. There's some places like that, but there are places that don't. So that's why the whole essence of this talk is not to say don't use credit cards. It's just to say don't keep carrying a credit card debt. So that's two things to really distinguish, So to like her question and your question, if you're going somewhere and you know that there are places like that and you don't like the stress of somebody is going to keep telling me you need a credit card to do this. Have a credit card, but nobody's saying you need to go spend that money. If you have the cash and you've already budgeted for that trip, for example, the trip to Nigeria or wherever it is you're going, you can pay with your credit card. There's nothing that stops you from transferring the money from your account back to the credit card. So having the credit card is not the issue. Having the card is not the problem. It's how you use the card that is the issue. And then to the other question with regards to mortgage, well, mortgage can help you to build your credit, that is true, but if your goal is to, I don't think there's any essence of keeping that mortgage for the whole 30 years if you are able to pay that mortgage off on time. I don't think there's any, unless maybe there's somebody here that has the money and you can just go and put the money down and buy the whole house at once. That would be awesome, but for most people, even somebody who wants to pay off his mortgage fast, most people still spend at least like 5 years. Like if you have the money, even if you buy like a $250,000 house or whatever it is, or a $500,000 house, and you are paying off the mortgage and your goal is not to do 30 years, you say you want to do 10 years, and you are paying off that mortgage fast, that time you have spent, you have already like built your credit. So the question you would ask is, what else do you want to keep that credit for? If the credit, you want to keep it, if you're maintaining the credit just because of maybe going to places where, credit is more acceptable, then you can go the other route, like we said, just have like a secured credit card. So you always have a credit card if that's the goal. So that keeps your credit up. If your goal is just to maintain a high credit score, you don't have to keep your whole mortgage for that whole time just because you want to maintain a high credit score. There are several much cheaper ways to go about that.
Praise the Lord.
Hallelujah.
Thank you very much for that teaching. And just to buttress what you just said about the paying off of your home, one of the disadvantages of paying off your home is that once you pay it off, you can no longer get the mortgage. You can no longer write it off in your mortgage interest. Tax benefit, you lose the tax benefit. Why? That is the reason you have to keep a little bit there, even if you have to refinance to make your mortgage to be very low. every year you can always write off the interest, so which is the benefit, is a great benefit, And one thing is that the topic we are dealing with tonight is a very important one. Unfortunately, in this country, without credit, you really cannot really move too far. You need credit in order for you to move ahead. Even in some places, if you apply for a job, they look into your credit. And if your credit is not good, you don't get that job. And it is important that we establish credit one way or the other. But like you rightfully said, we do not have to carry a huge balance. But it is easier said than done. I mean, let's face the fact. It takes a lot of discipline for you not to fall into that crisis like you taught tonight. So one thing that we need to learn is that it is okay to establish credit, but discipline yourself that you don't go into crisis with your credit. And for you to also maintain anything above 700 in your credit, you have to have that credit at least open for a minimum of over 3 years. Anything below 3 years, you will be in the 600. But above 3 years, and you start seeing yourself in 720, 750, then 5 years, if you maintain a very good credit, then you go into the 800. But it is important that we establish credit one way or the other.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
So much for the teaching, ma. I think my question will be based on a teaching I've heard on this topic before. And they used the illustration of the parable of talent that Jesus gave in the Bible. And they said the person that was given the 5 talents came back with another 5 talents. The person that was given 4 came back with another 4. The person that was given 1 just kept it there and said, you know what? I know you want to reap where you did not sow. I've come back to give you back your money. In the training I went to then, is in the church. And what they were trying to tell us was that in this environment, we have opportunities. And one of the opportunities is access to loans, access to credit, and all those kind of things. So if you are not maximizing it, and from your teaching, I understand your perspective now. Like, you just have to be disciplined with spending. You have to be disciplined with your finances, which is one side to it. But in that training, they made us to understand that it's like there are 3 levels. It's either you are poor, it's either you are just average, or it's either you are rich. If you want to be rich, you have to use credit in a way. And why did I say that? And the way they explained it is what I'm going to say now. It's like you have access to talent. Someone like the talent now is like a loan. They gave 1 5. So if you can get that 5, why not go for 5 and multiply it and get another 5? Then the prayer that we've been praying for breakthrough, that is the prayer of breakthrough. You've reached there. You are rich. Your children are rich. That's another level. But if you put that 5 talents in savings, then from that biblical illustration, you are like a stupid person. Sorry to say that. Because it's like the money you can invest to make more money, you just kept it there without making any impact. So if we are looking at being financially disciplined, that's one side to it. Another side to it is looking at what exactly do you want. Some people don't pray to be rich. Sincerely, some people just don't want to be rich. They just want to be okay. If you are in that category, sincerely, get your card. When you spend it, make sure you put the money back. But if you are aiming high, there are some risks that are involved. And if you are not a risk taker, it is very hard for you to break that roof and get to the next level, which is the level I'm talking about of being rich and even extending that riches to your children, even yet unborn. So my conclusion or my question now is this. If you have the opportunity to get a loan, that you can use for business, and the interest rate is not that bad. Will you advise me as a Christian to go into that or not?
So I think the last slide we looked at talked about business credit. So business credit is completely different from personal credit. So if you're getting a credit and the goal of that credit is for you, or if you're going into debt, let me use the right word. If you're going into debt and the purpose of that debt is for you, just to meet your daily needs. So you are actually getting that credit card because you want to be able to, maybe you're not able to like buy gas, buy groceries, basic things like that. And that's what that credit card is serving. Is completely different from what you're talking about. You are now talking about you're going to get debt, which could be a loan. It doesn't even be a credit card. You can go into the bank and you can get a business loan. You can get a loan if you want to start a business. You can get a loan and go into business. But that is possible, and that's not, I don't think there's anything wrong with that as long as you know who you are and your level of risk. It's the same thing as some people even putting in money into like you can get a loan for a business if you so choose to, but remember that it is possible to get wealth without the loan. So if our mindset is that we can only be wealthy without the loan, I think that's more of a mindset. Personally, that's the way I see it, But if you think that the only way to wealth, the only way to wealth is to get a loan, fine, get a loan. Get a loan and get the wealth that you so desire. If you believe that is the only way, like there's no other way in this world for somebody to make money except you go into debt, you can do that. Whether that would work out, some people have done it and it hasn't worked out the way they expect and they are stuck with that loan. But the good thing about doing it like a business completely is you hear of most of these really wealthy people, they go bankrupt. They get loans. They go bankrupt. Do you think their personal loan? It's a business loan. The business is an entity that is completely different from you as an individual. So if you're getting a loan with regards to your business, if something happens, yes, there's loans that the bank will tie to you. But most of your business loan is for the business. The business is legally, the business is really like a different human being, and that person has a loan. And that person takes the loan and the person, either he makes money with the loan and he doesn't make money and then you are the beneficiary of that business, So, but that is completely dependent on each individual's risk appetite. Some people are ready to go all the way. They can take whatever debt and get, do whatever business. Some people will say, no, I'd rather build my business small. It might take me donkey years, but I might not be as wealthy as you, but I'll be okay, So that's more like an individual decision. I wouldn't tie it to the talents. I wouldn't tie that loan and credit to the talent. So what shocked me is that you said that was like in a church, this thing. I wouldn't tie getting the debt to the talents of the Bible. The talents is the talents. Talents are gifts that God has given to us. There can be so many different gifts that God has given to you. I don't think the gift God has given to anybody is the gift of getting a loan. That is just something you decide, do I need it in my business or don't I need it in my business? But the gift God has given to you is either the knowledge, whatever it is God has given to you to make wealth, the areas you excel in life, I believe those are part of the gifts that God has given to you, and that will direct whether your career or your business or whatever it is you choose to do.
Okay, I guess I'm next. Thank you so much for tonight's teaching. When I came into this country 2005, my husband's nephew from New Jersey sent us a book. It's called Dollar and Cents, that we should both read it, especially the wife. So we haven't seen in a long time. So I read the book and I was so scared. I said, no, never will I ever, get a credit card in this country. But necessity came that we had to take it, and we had to, Now, if you have 2 credit cards that you have paid off, do you still retain them? does the not using them, does it count as your credit score, as part of your credit score?
Well, I think if you really want to like just maintain a good credit score, not, it doesn't even have to be anything above 720. You know, if you want to maintain a good credit score, you would need to just use something, even if it's 10% of that credit card. But if you have other ways of building your credit that is already in the works, so maybe you already have a loan, or you already have mortgage, or you already have something that is counting towards your credit, then you don't necessarily have to use it if you don't want to. But if that's the only way by which your credit score is being calculated, just based on maybe you don't have any mortgage, you don't have any student loan, you don't have any debt at all, and you just want to still build your credit, sure, you can use a little bit out of it and pay it back. That's helping you to build your credit.
You don't have to close it completely.
No, you shouldn't close it. You shouldn't close it completely. I mean, some people don't care about credit score, but I think it's important in this country to have a good credit score. So you shouldn't close it. I mean, you can get rid of the card if you don't want to use it at all, you know, and if you have other ways to build your credit, you can get rid of the card. But if you don't have any way of building credit, I would say use a little bit, pay it off, you know, use it a little bit, pay it off, just like that on a monthly basis.
My second question is, if you're able to catch a closing, if you happen to know the closing date on your credit card, and you are able to pay not a minimum, something higher than a minimum, does it count towards the balance that they're going to work your balance interest on?
That's a very good question. Thank you for bringing that up, because the timing of when you pay your credit card matters a lot. Most times, sometimes we wait till like either the day is due or a day before, but sometimes they would have to, the bank or whoever will have to report that credit, you know, your credit situation before that due date or by that due date. So if you're paying as of that date or even the night before, sometimes it will not count towards the next month, because sometimes it takes a couple of days for it to post for whatever reason. So if the goal is to make sure you don't have like any you don't have any interest, you don't have any fees, and you want to build a good credit, you can pay it off like maybe a week or so, or you know, it's not advisable to just pay it off right away, like you just spend money today and just pay it off right away. You can wait maybe like a week or 2 weeks, and then you just pay off that credit, you know, I mean that debt or whatever it is you spent, you know. But waiting till the night before or the day that they said is like the due date is not advisable if the goal is to, you know, get rid of that debt from your credit history.
Okay. All right. Right, David. Okay, David, go ahead.
Praise the Lord.
Hallelujah.
I was just going to say thanks for the teaching. I just want to say thank you, Brother Daya, for that what you said. I just want to say it takes a lot of discipline, being a child of God as well, to go by our daily lives, you know, with everything around us. And I think it's the same discipline that we apply in terms of our spiritual life that we have to also try to apply in terms of maintaining our credit card, and you know, so it all just boils down on discipline. That's what I was just gonna say.
Thank you, sir. I think to me that's really like the main thing when it comes to credit or when it comes to debt or anything like that. It takes a lot of discipline for one to not go into it, because most times our goal is, I mean, I don't think anybody's goal is just to come here and just have a bunch of debt and just, you know, live like that. I don't think anybody comes with that mindset, but it takes a lot of discipline, but it also takes a lot of knowledge, because sometimes what you don't know might just be what it might be affecting one. Some people might even go to the extent of filing for bankruptcy when there are other ways to get out of debt. You know, some people might go to the extent of just not paying that credit card when they are, you know, there's a lot of knowledge which I didn't really want to go into much details in here, but it takes a lot of knowledge. Knowing what to do concerning that debt makes a big difference.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. One thing is that we should understand that this country is a country of debt. Okay, and
Yes. That's
the
why
more-
it's called the credit card debt crisis.
The more debt you have, the more opportunity you have to get more debt. And the fact is that when you want to invest, you want to go into business, you use the OPM, other people's money. You don't use your money. So that is when you go to the bank and you borrow the money. No matter how, you see, even Donald Trump, you know how many times he filed for bankruptcy? Today he claims to be one of the richest men in the world. But if you look at his asset, most of the money that he has is borrowed money. It's not his money. This country make it easy for you to borrow, and they make it easy for you to get out of it through bankruptcy. There are other different ways of bankruptcy that you can use to get out of debt and then start all over again. Because this is I'm not saying go and do it, but I'm saying they create the form for you to incur debt, and then they make a way for you to get out of it if you cannot pay it. But you need the money, the debt, to be able to create wealth. If you want to use your money to create wealth in this country, you'll be there for a very long time. But you use other people's money, which is what they call the OPM, to make money. You know, when you make money, then you use that money to pay back what you took. You don't use your own money when you are
So
when
but
you're
that
trying to make
that
money.
is business debt you're talking about.
Even
right?
personal debt, you
So
can take a personal loan, and if you
for
can't
your
pay,
normal daily expenses, is that what you mean, or for business?
no, even for you to take out a personal loan, what do you
Okay.
take personal loan for? You take out personal loan if you want to improve your home, if you want to buy a car, if you want to do something. And if you cannot pay it back, there's a way you can get out of it.
Are you teaching this or are you teaching just this?
Praise
now?
the Lord.
No, it's a knowledge that we need to have
So I think
in order for you to live
okay,
in
let
this
me let
country
Pastor-
comfortably.
Let me let Pastor.
Hallelujah.
Okay? Because we are so afraid of going into debt in this country.
Pastor, I don't think we are afraid, because I'm
No.
sure most of us have debt here. That's
I
why I
know we
started
have
with
debt,
the question.
but what I'm trying to say is that there's a way, this country that makes you to go into debt, makes a way for you to get out of debt
Maybe some of us, but some of people should see him after
without
this
going to
meeting.
prison.
Praise the Lord. There are some logics to this thing we need to know. Thank you for the teaching, man. God bless you. Number one, if assuming you have credit card for 10,000 and you can maintain maximum you have spent on it for 2,000, 3,000 for a period of time, more than 3 months, that you have 10,000 and you are not spending above 2,000, 3,000 for more than 3 months, it jumps up your credit. Because they look at you that, and not that you spend that you're not paying. With the 2,000, 3,000 you have spent, and you are paying, it will jump up your credit so much because they are looking at it that you are a disciplined person. You have 10,000 and you did not take yourself up to 50%. But the moment you are going above 50%, it drops down your credit. But if you stay below 30% or by 30% of your credit limit and you are paying your minimum payment, definitely your credit go up. And secondly, if you want to talk about any loan at all, say you want to spend money on anything, put some 2-3 things into consideration. What do I want to spend it for? Okay, it's a business. What is the cost of that business? 1,000. What will be the end result of the profit? If you are investing 1,000 in a business with a loan and you are not going to make 3,000 on it, forget it. Why? You are taking a loan of 1,000 into a business. At times, you might project 3 months to transact that business to be over. It might take you 9 months. And if it take you 9 months, the interest on the 9 months ago is already going. And at the end of the day, if a business is taking so long, it might make you not to come to a point where your estimated 3,000 of selling might drop to 1,500 or 2,000. Because, for example, look at all these cars in the car lot. When you go now for 2018, 19, 20 year car, the price will be like this. In another 1 year, because they also are losing interest, they are losing their profit the more the car stays in their lot. That's why when you walk in there, they want to do anything to make sure drive that car out. If you drive that car out and you change your mind to come back, you're already losing 5,000. So the more the car stays on their lot, if they sell it last month assuming they make 5,000, if they don't sell it last month, they are selling in 2 months' time, they may end up making like 3,000. So they also knows, that's what I'm trying to say, that, so if you are taking any business loan, your calculation cannot be accurate. Remember that. Number one, you cannot simply say, it's just for me to go and buy in Dallas and come and sell it in Fort Worth. You might buy it in Dallas. It might not sell it to Fort Worth when you get to Fort Worth. It might make you to go to Waco to go and sell it. And transportation from that Fort Worth to Waco is not in your budget. So by the time you stay on that, that's okay now. If I'm projecting that I'm taking a loan of 1,000 and I'm estimating at all, at the end of the day, will give me like 3,000. If anything at all go worst, if I make like 1,000, 1,005, I know I'm still likely not to be shaking. But some people will just wake up one morning, I'll make $300, $300, and you went and take 1,000. By the time you take 1,000, all the unexpected now come on the business. You find that the $300 is already swallowed up. Then it becomes 1,300 that you are owing. Next month it becomes 1,415. That's how it start growing. So this is just a logic. But if it's not bad to have a credit card, but once you have it, make sure you pay what you need to owe. Number two, if you can stay below 30% of what your credit limit is, it goes far. For more than 3 months, you maintain like that, it jumps up your credit. Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord. I also wanted to add something with regards to the business. I remember I think it's the lady who came sometime during the women's conference, and she talked about, how she started her business, and she had to go get like a small business loan or something like that from the SBA loan or something like that. So she did get a loan to start her business, which was a very, very successful business. So I don't think the essence of this is saying that anybody cannot go get a loan for a business, but ask yourself the question, are you willing to go all the way with that business? Because it means that, if that business does not work out, then of course, according to pastor, you have other ways which you can see pastor for, but it all depends on the individual. It all depends on the individual. But looking at Donald Trump as your guide for business, trust me, there are other people that are richer and they are not going into bankruptcy. There are other people that are rich and they are not necessarily dependent on debt. Search for those people. If your goal, if all we can see is that you have to do this to get this, if you don't do this, you will not get this, then that's the only way you go, So I full of people that without in any debt. It all depends on the individual in that sense. I think we'll just take 2 more questions and then we can round up.
Just to answer the question that Deacon has asked, if you can close out a loan, it's important to have lines of credit open. Not use is good, but use and bring your limit with less than 40% of your limit to keep your credit up. But the only time I have ever closed out a line of credit card or whatever it is, there are some credit cards that unfortunately have maintenance fees attached to them. So you have zero balance, but every year they'll charge you $30, $40, $50 to maintain that card. And you ask yourself, what am I maintaining if I didn't use your money? So investigate your cards very carefully. If for any reason you have a card at zero balance, like Macy's was one of them, Sears was one of those big ones that would charge you $50, $60, $70 a year to have the card even with a zero balance, I would say close those out, get cards to replace them with the actual fine print that there's no maintenance fees attached to it. So you have a zero balance on that card, but yes, your credit still maintains.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. You close the card, yeah.
Maintenance fee. So they quickly gave me back the money. They put it towards my Chase account. You kind of just credit my account for that. So
that's the good thing about just checking with your credit report and credit score and things like that.
Yes.
Praise the Lord.
Hallelujah.
I know our goal is to attain like a $0, dollar balance or something low. What about maintaining a negative balance? Does it have any effect on your credit score? Because I know someone who purposely pays like $20 every paycheck to her credit card, she maintains like negative balance in the hundreds. And when you ask her why, she'll tell you, because I know I'll always buy clothes for my kids from Children's Place or buy my own work clothes from Dillard's. That way, when she needs to buy clothes, she doesn't have to bring out her like money. She already has that negative balance. So does it have any effect?
Well,
on
I
your
think she can
credit
check
score?
her credit score. I mean, as long as it's not bringing down her credit score, I don't think it has any negative effects. Essentially, it's just like you're giving the bank. It's still the same thing as giving the bank money to hold for you. And then when you want to use the money, go spend it. It's really the same thing as using your money in your bank account, you know. So as long as I don't think it has like any negative impact to her with regards to like credit score or like her credit report, you know. But ideally you can always use it and pay it back. You know, it doesn't reduce anything. But if one is comfortable with that, then I think that's also okay.
Praise the Lord.
Hallelujah.
Like what you were saying about your minimum payment. You know, there was a credit card that when I met you, it was $3,000. So every month we're paying $300. And, you know, it took us years to realize that we were paying $300 and that money was not reducing because we were just servicing the interest. So we now stopped paying. And when nothing happened, but when we wanted to buy the house, you had to settle that debt. So you have to go and look at your credit card, like you're saying. Make sure that you really servicing that credit or that thing you have taken. You can now, if we were done, we don't just have called the credit card and say we want to negotiate the bill, we want to pay it and say we want to pay it off or something. Instead of paying $300 for how many years, and that money was still $3,000. So that's what I thank you for this thing. That's what some of us should consider. That's what we did, and that's we stopped paying that because that's the thing that happens to us in this country. We are just wasting our money, adding any money, paying credit card.
Yeah, and some people do that, you know, without even going the route of filing bankruptcy or whatever. Some people might have like a huge credit card. They just stop paying it for a while. And then after some time, they call whoever, maybe the credit card company might have sent it to collections or whatever. And they call them and they negotiate it for pennies on the dollar because those people are buying it for maybe like 10 cents to $1. You negotiate it and you pay that off. You know, it may affect your credit score, but you don't necessarily have to file bankruptcy. I mean, it's not something that you go in with the mindset of doing that, but that's like a worst case, you know, worst case scenario. There are lots of ways to kind of think about getting out of debt, you know, without necessarily going to the extreme. I think this will be the last, and we can close.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to your question, Ms. Iloma. If you have a negative balance, the effect is that the money would not earn any kind of interest. You will not. There is no interest paid. Let's assume you pay them over. You pay $100 over, you know, what you're supposed to pay, and you know you have zero balance, but now you have $100 credit, so to speak. That $100 will not earn any interest of any kind. So you are losing money big time. So if you have $100 extra to pay or to spend or to give to credit card, put it in your bank.
That's a businessman there, right?
Yeah, but or try a different kind of arrangement. Go to CD, put it in CD, you get like 3.3%. Yeah, but there is no interest if you live with a credit card. That's what I wanted to point out.
Thank you very much for your teaching tonight. You brought out a lot of things that we ought to know. And one thing that I would like to say before you actually close up is that when you close out a credit card, it affects your credit negatively. You know, so if you don't really have to close it out, don't close it out because it drops your credit, you know, rating. And also for Mrs. Iloma, when you have an overage, it's like a secured credit at that point. So not until you use that extra out, you will not start using what your credit card balance is. You know, it will not affect your credit card balance, but it will not make your credit rating more or less. Thank you very much.
Before we close, I have something else to add. I would say if you're going to get a credit card, look at all of the conditions, and you should also try to get one that will pay you back in some way. Say like an airline card that will give you miles for your vacation, or hotel card that will give you free stay. So every year you can pack up your family and go have a good time somewhere without having to pay anything out of your pocket. So instead of them getting you, you can also get them. You know, by using that card, as soon as you use it, you pay it back. They're adding points to your account. So all of these points are accumulating. At the end of a year, you have enough to take a vacation for free. Instead of you paying interest, but you pay it back before the actual due date, so no interest is accrued, but you're still earning your points. So there's a way you could get around it and still make them pay you.
Yes, thank you, sir.
And one of the cards that I will advise that you get, like the Sam's MasterCard, get that card, and when you go for food shopping, use it, and then pay them back. Because recently, I didn't know that when you pay them back, you get money back. So this last week, my wife went shopping, and she has over $280 that she has, so all her shopping was like free. So I advise